Hello, in today's video we will be looking at stepper motors and controllers for the Voron V2. The Voron V2 uses a NEMA 17 motor. I have an assortment of them here in front of you, and while in theory the Voron V2 can use any NEMA 17 motor, I do want to go over some things. The first thing I want to go over is the size and torque rating of the motor itself. For the Voron, there is no worry about length of motor. Pretty much any length NEMA 17 motor will fit, so you don't need to worry about finding thin or pancake steppers, for example. But the torque rating is something you need to look at. This motor right here is the Spec Motor you will find on the bill of materials. It is a motor from Tmc Stepper Online. It is a 59 nanocentimeter or 84 ounce torque motor. This is the specified motor. This right here is some old one I pulled out of a small printer I have, and this one is actually only a 34 ounce motor. With the Voron, we recommend, if you are purchasing a new set of motors for the build, stick with the specified motors. While some people have had luck, I myself run on my 250 millimeter build, I run 64 ounce motors for the AB. If you are building from scratch, just go straight to the specified motors. If you are using motors from an old build, we recommend that you do stick to motors that are relatively powerful. I would not personally use these. The lowest I would go would be 44 NCM or 64 ounce motors, for example. With the motors, you do want to ensure they do have a D-locked pin on them. This will allow your set screws to grab onto the pin when you tighten them. This one here is smooth. It is best to get motors that have a D-lock shaft. Now, one thing that does come up often is some people do wish to use 0.9 degree stepper motors instead of the 1.8. If you do wish to go that route, do not use those on the Z or the extruder. They are already heavily geared. You're looking at 400 steps per millimeter for Z and 560 approximate steps per millimeter for your extruder. Going to a 0.9 degree stepper motor will double that, and the MCU on a ramps board actually cannot handle that. As for quality, with the heavy gearing, you're not going to see much of an increase in quality. Some people do run 0.9 degree steppers on their X and Y. Be aware you are going to lose some torque, and the quality increase that you may see may not be barely visible at all. So we recommend simply sticking to the specified motors. We know they work, and most Vorons are built using those specified motors. At this time, Klipper is the recommended firmware for running your V2. It, along with RepRap firmware, are the only two viable firmware options for running your printer. Marlin and SmoothieWare do not work for running a V2. They lack the code required for making the gantry leveling work. The reason we recommend Klipper over a Duet is simply due to cost and efficiency. The Klipper does appear to have a better motion planner, and the software is more up to date when it comes to items the V2 requires to function. The Duet, while it can run a V2, this printer right here is actually on Duet. It is limited to a version of Duet RepRap firmware that is currently outdated, as the gantry leveling code is not part of the baseline public release of RepRap firmware. Most Vorons that you see that had Duets in them were either built or the Duets were purchased before Klipper became a viable option for the V2. With the Duet, you will need the Duet board along with a Duex expander to run. With Klipper, you simply need 2 ramps kits and a Raspberry Pi 3, so it is a much more economical option, and performance-wise, it is punching at the same level as RepRap firmware, and in some cases a little bit above when it comes to print quality. For Klipper to function, you do need a Raspberry Pi 3, either 3 or 3B+. If you have a Pi2 kicking around, you probably still can use that. It should still be powerful enough, but if you are purchasing new, stick with the 3 or the 3B Plus. Do not use a Pi0. It does not have the power to run Clipper, and if you do add a camera, you'll immediately max it out. Now, for the board, some people wonder why we spec a ramps board. Ramps is old, ramps is outdated. Why are you sticking with ramps? The reason is ramps, when paired with Clipper, is simply an interface for Clipper to talk to the hardware through the ramps kit that runs your printer. So even though these are 8-bit controllers, they're not really doing any of the thinking involved with the motion planning. That's how you can get away with still using an 8-bit ramps and still maxing out the speed of your Voron. Ramps are pretty much an industry standard. They're very common. They're very easy to work with. The pinouts are all known. They're very easy to source. So stick with the ramps if you are very new to building. Now with ramps, you will be limited to 12 volt unless you modify your ramps. There are guides online on how to do that if you wish to modify your ramps to 24 volt. It's not overly complicated. However, I won't go through that myself. There are videos and tutorials out there, and that is something you're going to have to look into doing yourself if you wish to go that route. With sourcing your ramps, it is okay to use a clone ramps. It doesn't need to be an official Arduino Mega, for example, but one thing we do recommend looking at is with the Mega controller itself is the USB chip. Now this is a generic Chinese clone ramps, and the chip you can see here is this large rectangular one. That is a CH340. Now on this ramps here, you can see it's a square one. This is a 16U2 USB controller. The reason you want the 16U2 over the CH340 is, one, this is a more reliable chip that does have higher bandwidth, so you'll have less connection issues connecting your ramps kits to the Raspberry Pi. And another thing is with some of the CH340s, they're so cheap that they have issues when it comes to USB assignment. So what that means is if you ever plug or unplug the controllers from the ramps, it may lose assignment between the two ramps boards you have plugged in. So we recommend getting a ramps kit. This one right here is from Zeltec. If they are US based out of Houston, I believe, their ramps kits are very high quality. The ramps boards are very good. The Arduino Megas come with the proper USB chip. If you decide to source your ramps from a online vendor such as AliExpress, I have not seen any full kits that come with a Arduino Mega with the 16U2 chip. So what that means is you'll have to purchase this board by itself. There are Arduino Megas on AliExpress that come with this, and simply pair it with a generic ramps 1.4 shield. Drivers for the ramps, you do have some options. These are A4988s, DRVs, and TMCs. The DRVs, we don't recommend using at all. They're loud, they're noisy. They do have a higher power rating than the other two. However, you don't need it for your Voron, so we simply advise not using them. This driver right here is the A4988. This is the specified driver for the Voron V2. The reason we recommend this driver in particular, they're bulletproof, they're cheap, they're powerful, they come with most ramps kits, and performance in terms of speed and quality, upgrading the drive from this isn't going to buy you much more, if any at all. Now with 24 volts and with the dampers on the motors on the Voron V2, they actually are relatively quiet compared to these in most other printers. If you do wish to upgrade from these, you are going to be looking at the Tmc drivers most likely. This one here is a Tmc 2208. The advantage with Tmc drivers, they allow you to control via software items such as microstepping, voltage control of the motors, as well as switching between spread cycle and stealth chop modes for increased quietness of your printer. But again, these are not required, and adding these do have some issues. In the step-stick format, they are actually very hard to keep cool. I run mine with these big heat sinks, and I normally had a 80mm fan blowing directly on them to keep them cold. They do overheat relatively quickly. If you are looking at a controller with TMCs, we recommend looking at, for example, using an Einzi board. Those can work with Clipper, and they have the TMC drivers on the board itself. That offers a much better cooling option. Be aware though, if you do choose to use an Einzi, you will need 2 of them. So that adds up quite a bit in terms of cost. Other boards that you can look at, while we do recommend sticking with the ramps, if you are looking for an option that is 24 volts right off the bat and requires no modding, there are boards such as the Physek F6, Big Tree Tech has the SKR board. There are some MKS boards as well that are supported. If you do wish to blow money, a Duet actually can run Clipper quite well. It's probably one of the best boards for running Clipper. And the Einzi Rambo as well is a good option, but be aware you will need 2 of all those boards. Any board that is based on an Arduino Mega, you will need 2 no matter what. Even if you do find a board, there are some out there that are Arduino Mega based that do support 7 steppers on one board. You cannot use that with the Voron. One ramps board with 4 drivers controlling the Z motion will max out. So that's why when you do set up your Voron, we recommend you have one board that has just the Z, and then the other board has your A, B, and extruder motor. Thank you again for watching. This video again was on the steppers and controller for the Voron V2. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them below or hit me up on the Discord. My name is Uber Nero. The next video in this series will be on the incidentals, on tools, some wiring, any other items you might need for your Voron build. Thank you and have a great day.